Everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jillian Grassetti. I'm our Senior Vice President of Sales here at Atura. So we build software that is purpose-built for the towing and recovery industry. And I'm joined today by Sean Duta from Stripe's Platform Partnerships team. So Sean, go ahead and say hello.
Thanks, Jillian. I think many of you may have heard of Stripe as a fintech or a payment processor. And we started by helping businesses just accept card payments with a few lines of code. And today we've grown from there. We process about 1.3% of global GDP across 9 million businesses. And some of the biggest businesses in the world run on Stripe without most folks actually knowing about it. If you ever bought something from a Shopify store through an Instagram ad, or bought a pair of Nikes, or ordered on DoorDash, you've used Stripe. And the reason you may have not seen us in the wild is because we're actually an infrastructure company. We're fully white labeled, and that's the same partnership we have with Autura. We run the payment rails, we safeguard transactions, we fight fraud behind the scenes, and we're bringing new technology like tap to pay to our industry partners, especially in towing. Our job is to make the payments experience feel seamless, secure, and modern for your customers.
Thanks so much, Sean. We are absolutely super excited to be here today. And again, we're very excited to be able to talk to the towing industry a bit about this partnership and what it means ultimately for the experience you deliver to your customers. So we have a great session planned. We're looking at about 30 minutes of content, and we've definitely saved time at the end for Q&A. So definitely drop questions in into the chat as we go. And so to start, let's actually practice using that chat function. So everyone, please head to the chat and let us know where you hail from. And for those of us who are joining from the towing industry, like if you could estimate how many tow or roadside events you've helped facilitate this year so far, go ahead and throw that in as well. Okay. Texas, Arizona, pretty well covered. Atlanta, love it. Hello, Mr. Paquette, Southside Wrecker, Atlanta, love it. South Carolina. All right, you guys are pros. Done this before, I can tell. Okay, so folks, again, keep rolling in. Love the engagement. And again, as you have questions, feel free to throw it in the chat. We can have someone either address your question right in there, or we can even save it for Q&A later. If we can't get to every single question, we'll be sure to include that in any follow-up that we get out to this group. So before we get into the data, I did want to take a minute to set the stage for why we did this in the first place. So at Atura, we do sit at the center of the towing and recovery industry. And one thing that I've personally observed is that the towing industry does not have a lot of third-party research speaking directly to their world. There's no shortage of consumer payment data out there, but almost none of it is specific to the roadside and towing experience. So we know payments are a big part of how the motoring public perceives the services that they receive, but we really wanted to quantify how much and put real data in the hands of business owners so they could see it in their own customers' words, just how critical the payment interaction is as part of that journey. So together we commissioned a study through YouGov to go directly to the source and ask the motoring public what they actually expect when it's time to pay after a tow or roadside service event. The results were more telling than we expected. So Sean, anything you wanted to add on as to why Stripe was excited to be part of this research project?
Yeah, absolutely. So Stripe works with over 14,000 software platforms, and it's pretty much across every vertical you can imagine: healthcare, fitness, property management, childcare, restaurants, and of course, towing and recovery. And one of the things we have learned is that the verticals that really invest in understanding their customers' expectations get really close to those customer needs, and especially around the checkout experience, outperform the ones that treat this as an afterthought. So, for example, there's this idea of choice, right? You want to present your customers with the right payment choices to help them purchase your product. But then there's this other idea of reducing friction and checkout speed. You don't want to slow a customer or frustrate them when they want to make a purchase. That impulse to buy can be great for commerce. But balancing choice and speed is security. You want to both be secure in matter of fact, but also conveying to customers that, look, we're investing in security. And as a result, you want them to leave with a more positive impression of the business they purchase from. So when Oturo approached us about commissioning the study, we jumped at it. There's very little primary research on what consumers actually expect at the point of payment in specialized service industries. And this study fills that gap with real data from real customers. And we believe that kind of evidence really helps the entire industry raise the bar. So we were very excited about the results.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. So let's talk a little bit about the study itself. This is how the research was structured. So again, we partnered with YouGov. We commissioned this survey in December of 2025, and we surveyed over 1,000 U.S. licensed motorists. It is important to note that we didn't just ask anyone. We did narrow that respondent pool to people who had actually paid for towing and roadside assistance or impound services in the last 12 months. So these are really experiences from real customers that your drivers and yourself, folks, your office staff are dealing with every single day. We organize the findings into 5 key themes, which we'll talk through now. And so, again, here's what we're going to be covering today at a pretty high level. So, we're going to talk through security and trust, customer concerns, speed and simplicity, modern payments, and we'll talk a little bit about a certain customer cohort that we saw that we wanted to call out specifically in younger customers. All right, so let's hop into security and trust. So, security, I mean, 92% of respondents said that secure payment processing is extremely or very important. So, that's basically unanimous. And 77% that the trust that they have in payment technology brands matter to them specifically. Now, here's the number that should get every towing business owner's attention. Only 37% that their last towing payment felt secure and trustworthy. So that's a pretty significant gap. Nearly everyone says that security is a non-negotiable, and yet fewer than 4 in 10 felt good about that most recent experience. That's a massive confidence problem in the industry, and frankly, we see this as an opportunity. So, Sean, from Stripe's perspective, what do you see when you look at the data we see on trust?
Yeah, Jillian, that 37% is so striking. I mean, nearly everyone says security matters, only a third feel good about their last experience. So, from our perspective, this is about the invisible work that happens behind every transaction, while also showing that work. Stripe processes hundreds of billions a year. We use these machine learning models to detect stolen cards, flag suspicious transactions, and ultimately block fraud. And we analyze over 1,000 signals in real time. Now, that's not something any individual firm or entity could really build on their own. It's the power of our network, and it's we've also seen and not something a lot of payment processors are really investing in. So when a consumer sees a Stripe powered checkout, even if they don't see our name, they benefit from the infrastructure, and that means the tokenization, the encryption, the network level fraud detection, and through Tora, every one of you folks gets that same level of protection. Like ultimately, it's about showing up and letting the experience speak for itself. If your customers see a clean, modern checkout page, an easy card swipe or tap, a clean credit card statement charge, and no friction during the checkout, they'll feel that much more inclined to believe in the trust and the security, and that should ultimately close the gap that we are seeing in these numbers.
That's great, Sean. Thank you so much for the additional context there. Let's dig a little bit more into customer concerns. So, again, what is driving that lack of trust? Well, almost half, or 49%, say they don't want to hand over a physical card, and 40% have data and privacy concerns, 30% worry about fraud. So when you think about experiencing a roadside event, like if you put yourself in the motoring public shoes, your car is broken down or impounded. Now someone's asking you to hand over your credit card on the side of the road or in a lot. It makes complete sense that this could create some level of consumer anxiety. And so this payment experience doesn't just affect your revenue, it affects how the customer feels and probably is talking about your business when they walk away. Now, digging a little bit more into speed and simplicity next. So, 85% want the fewest amount of steps possible. 76% value transaction speed, and 61% want an instant digital receipt. So, for a towing company, a faster experience on scene means that your drivers can move on to the next job quickly. And this is not just a customer experience issue, it's actually an operational efficiency issue, and it can be a safety opportunity. We know the rate of secondary accidents is pretty staggering and extreme. So, any opportunity we have to drive safety is absolutely something that we want to take advantage of. And so, Sean, I would love for you to speak to what like the fewest steps actually mean from a payments infrastructure standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here's a couple of things that can translate to. First of all, tap to pay. Imagine your driver holds out their phone, the customer taps their card or their Apple Pay wallet, and the transaction is just done. No swiping, no handing over a card, no manual entry. The customer's card never leaves their hand. That's a fundamentally different experience from what I think most people, even today, associate with paying for anything related to their automobile, whether that's at a repair shop or at a dealership. And with Tap to Pay, you can show them a modern, leading edge checkout experience. Second, Link. Stripe has this product called Link that lets returning customers pay with one click. If they've saved their card through any Stripe powered checkout before in any of our millions of users and partners, their information just autofills. So no typing in a 16-digit card number on a tiny form on the phone. They just fill in their phone number or email, and the card is automatically filled in, securely, of course. And not many people, we understand, enjoy being towed on more than one occasion. But when life happens, Link creates this really less stressful experience rather than fumbling with a card number on a digital form. And so ultimately, what that means, Julian, to your point, is your drivers finish the payment in under a minute and they're off to the next job. And that's a better customer experience and better fleet utilization, we believe, at the same time.
Thanks for that, Sean. All right, folks, moving right along, I definitely want to dive in about modern payments, or again, what folks expect nowadays from a payment experience, whether it's towing and recovery services or effectively anything else. So this is where it gets really interesting. So 46% of respondents say that they would use a digital wallet if offered. So think Apple Pay and Google Pay. 45% would use text to pay, and 42% of folks said that they're more likely to complete a payment on a bill over $400 if they have split or pay later options. So again, this is pretty much cutting edge of payments, and yet the customer base is already there. So that last number is significant for this industry. When you look at towing bills, especially impound or heavy duty recovery, the frequently exceeds $400 per. So if nearly half of your customers are more likely to pay in full when you give them a flexible option, that could be a direct revenue impact to you. So again, customers are already using and expecting these payment methods everywhere else in their lives. So it's completely understandable that your customers would have that same expectation of optionality for your services as well. Okay, and so rounding out, I was saying earlier that I wanted to address, one particular customer cohort that we found in the data that was absolutely worth calling out, and that is that current customer cohort. So if you think this is mostly about, again, older, digitally savvy customers, really take a look at that 18 to 44 cohort. So 60% prefer digital wallets over 46% overall. 56% want text to pay versus 45% overall. And 51% want split or delayed options on large bills versus 42% overall. So they're absolutely driving that really modern expectation in payments at large. And again, I would expect that to translate outside of towing and recovery and probably extend more to how they view payments in general. And so this demographic is going to keep pushing the bar higher. And towing business owners who lean into providing a consumer first version of payments are absolutely going to have a real competitive edge with those customers and how they talk about your brand after the services are rendered. All right, folks. So, with that, I did want to recap the key findings that we reviewed today. So, the data tells us five key things. So, again, one, motorists expect to pay with a card, but increasingly they don't want to hand one over. Two, security and trust in payments tech are baseline expectations, not extras. Three, speed and simplicity are table stakes. Fewer steps, faster close, instant confirmation. Four, digital wallets, text to pay, flexible financing are already in demand. And five, younger customers hold higher expectations, and they're a growing share of every towing operator's business. So every one of those things shape how we continue to invest in our payments capability, how that some of you all, probably know as TowPay today. So with those takeaways in mind, I would like to take a moment before we dive into Q&A just to share a few key features and capability of TowPay, which directly aligns to research findings. So for those of you who are using TowPay today as part of your Atura towing management system, great. If you're not, I'd absolutely love to have a conversation with you after this. Or if you're not yet a customer, hopefully this specific call out serves as a way for you to get started today, right? And so when you think about TowPay, do want you to remember that, Stripe powered security addresses the trust gap. Tap to pay and digital wallets, which are already inherently part of TowPay, eliminate that card handoff problem that we articulated earlier. Faster checkout, instant receipts, close job on the spot. In that direct integration into your TMS means that your dispatcher isn't doing any double data entry. So clean invoicing cleans up your AR and built-in tipping, honestly, one of our like customer favorite features, lets customers reward drivers while the experience is still top of mind. So, Sean, wanted to tag you in. Any final thoughts, I think, from Stripe before we head into our Q&A, if there is any?
Yeah, thanks, Jillian. I'll close with this. I think we're all very excited about the direction of the industry as far as the customer experience goes. The towing industry is at an inflection point, we believe, with payments. And we believe a great experience goes hand in hand with security. Your customers are already expecting the same experience they get everywhere else: fast, secure, flexible, and digital. And the operators who meet that expectation will be in a better position to succeed and meet customers where they are.
No, wonderful. Um, Okay, so, thank you so much for all of you spending a little bit of time with us today, and a huge thank you to Sean and the Stripe team for partnering on this research and continuing to drive innovation, again, cutting edge capabilities with our ToPay payments product. So, again, if you wanted to see ToPay in action, you can definitely request a demo at the link on your screen, or you can find that in